Shabbat Shalom, friends. As we prepare for Shabbat at home, I wanted to share a brief Dvar Torah for you to think about, to chew on, to share some ideas and offer some feedback as we prepare for a double parsha this week of Tazria Metzorah and a Haftorah, which is of neither of those, because it's also Shabbat Rosh Chodesh Iyar. And it's interesting that even though we're going to be reading a Haftorah for Shabbat Rosh Chodesh, there are two great Haftorahs we'll be missing this week as a result. One for Tazria, which is the story of Naaman and the man who becomes a Metzorah. And then the Haftorah, which I want to share briefly about, of Metzorah, which is a story of four lepers, four people with tzara'at, with this divine leprosy, and that we can learn many, many lessons from. And just to share, as we dive in, the Haftorah, which we don't read again this Shabbat, is about Arba Anashim Hayu Mitzoraim, four men who were lepers. This is from the book of Kings, the second book of Kings, chapter 7. And it tells us the story that the king of Aram had sent an army to siege the city of the old city, and that there were actually people living outside of the walls of the city in isolation, in quarantine, in fact, because they had tzara'at. And we understand that people of tzara'at at that time had tzara'at not because of a physical malady, but a spiritual malady, that they spoke ill of others, were selfish in the ways that they lived their lives. And therefore, they were quarantined, they were cast out. And in so doing, they were caught between a rock and a hard place, because they were not welcomed in the city, but outside the city was a siege from the people of Aram. The soldiers had set up camp around the city walls. And so they were stuck at the edge on the walls, living in their small encampment, and nobody really wanted to deal with them. But they couldn't go into the city, and they couldn't leave the city because of the surrounding army. And anyway, who would want to go into the city? Everybody was starving there from the siege. And so they have this great dilemma. And they say, if we go into the city, we'll die, we'll starve, there's no food there. And if we go into the Aramean camp, where we can smell breakfast every day, literally, they'll kill us there too. And so they decide that they're going to go into the camp of Aram and plead and hope that they can get some food. And a miracle happens. And when they get up one day to go into the camp, Hashem had caused a miracle that in the night, the people of Aram had heard hoofbeats perhaps. They thought maybe another army was coming to aid the Israelites, and they fled. Or on other accounts, they died of a plague. And so when they entered the Aram camp, there was food everywhere, but no people. And so they started to gorge themselves. They ate and they ate and they ate. And it says that they arrived at the camp, and they came to one tent, and they ate and they drank, and then they found kesef and zahav u'bgadim, so they quickly grabbed all the money they could and the clothes, and they buried them in a spot. And then they went to another tent and they saw more, and they grabbed it and they buried it. And they went to a third tent and there was hordes of toilet paper, and they grabbed that too. And they went to the next tent and the next tent, and they started hoarding things and realizing, wow, look what we found. And then all of a sudden a light bulb goes off. Vayamru ish el re'ehu, lo ken anachnu osim hayom hazeh yom besorahu, ve'anachnu machshim lichinu ad or haboker umetzana avon. He says, whoa, what are we doing? Lo ken anachnu osim. We are not acting properly. Hayom hazeh yom besorah. Yom Besorahu. Today is a day of good news. The silver lining here in this misery. And we're keeping it to ourselves and we're hoarding it for ourselves. We have to tell everybody. We have to share the news with everyone. Come. Let's go tell the king. Let's go share our good fortune with others. And the story turns. And in fact, the salvation of the city, of the Israelite people, comes from four lepers, from Arba Anashim Hayu Mitzoraim, from those that were outcasts, those who were quarantined. They are able to overcome their selfishness that got them there in the first place. they're able to see beyond what they're capable of grabbing, and making sure that as they find their good fortune, they are always thinking how they can share it with others. Very powerful message for us in our times as well today. And I give us all a bracha on this Shabbat as we think about Tazria, Metzorah, and we think about the language that comes out of our mouths, how we continually fight selfishness and think about generosity in all the ways in which we live. I welcome, as we do these Divrei Torah a couple times a week, for virtual sponsorships to help support our community. All the best.